happy you're all here. Thank you for joining. So I'm Rinwa or Ginwa. I come from Lebanon originally. I'm right now based in Vancouver, Canada. I lived in quite a few places. I actually lived in Saudi Arabia. I grew up in Lebanon mostly. And at the age of 23, I moved to Saudi Arabia to join my then husband, who was Lebanese. And it was very difficult time in Saudi Arabia because it was so conservative. I don't know how it is now. And then we moved to Dubai, and I worked as a graphic designer, brand designer, and I taught graphic design, typography, Arabic calligraphy at university level for the longest time. So my background is almost 10 years, even more of design. And then I came to when went to the Netherlands on my own. I needed to live on my own for the first time in my life, and I did a master's degree there, and went back to Dubai. And again, from doing art, I went back to design because it was safe, financially safe, and because I was still a scared person, doing the right thing. And then we moved here. I was done with the Arab world. I was not happy, and we moved to Canada 4 years ago. I also had a little daughter. She's 5 now, and I think being here has transformed my life completely. When my daughter was born, I had a support system in Dubai, and I had a job, I had financial security, I had a nanny helping me out, and just to immigrate here, I lost all my support system. I had family visiting to help, and here there's literally nobody I know. Um, it was a ride. When what happened is it was like a Pandora's box. I came, my daughter was 1, but I actually feel that my first year started after coming here of mothering. And I had to face a lot of things. Some things started opening up related to mother wounds and birth trauma. And what happened is that I gradually went on a healing journey, and it was very confronting. But what came out is that I need to quit design altogether, and I need to make art full time. I will allow myself to do that. So I went back to university to get another master's degree in Canada. And I wanted to find my community. So it was, for me, the easiest thing was to join school again and make artist friends and understand the art community and art scene and how to get into it. So I did that, and it was pretty stressful for 2 years. Actually, it took 2.5 years because of COVID, and I just graduated recently. It took longer, and at the same time, it was starting to be clear to me that I was not happy in my marriage. Hi to everybody who just joined. I was telling in a nutshell about myself, a little bit long, but I think it's important for you to maybe know where this is coming from, where this class is coming from. um, I did something called somatic journeying to go deep into myself, because it was clear that I was not happy, but at the same time I was still scared of making any ruptures, being alone here, having nobody. but it was very clear that I needed to leave, and I left my home, took my daughter to another house, um, October 2019. And since then, my life has been such a different, yeah, such a different experience. I feel stronger than ever. I feel happier than ever. And I think happiness is a bit, in terms of word, it's very loaded. I don't think I can say like I'm happy, cheery, bubbly the whole time. No, but I'm really grounded even when I'm not necessarily very cheerful. I can be with those emotions that come. I feel I completed some kind of cycle, and I've encountered a lot of women on the way and a lot of artists on the way. And I always, because my practice is trauma informed, and I study and I research trauma and the nervous system, I know that this is like a completion of a cycle of traumatic stress or chronic stress where, or to complete it, you need to share it with other people. So this class is part of as well me completing a healing journey, and me putting that into fulfilling my life purpose. Um, in terms of my art practice, I started working mainly doing autobiographical art. I write a lot. Most of my work is narrative based. And I do video installations. And gradually, I'm focusing more on gesture and video performance, movement, because the worlds of somatics or movement and art and autobiography and writing are starting to merge in my practice right now. And I started when I shifted my focus on trauma and embodiment, then it was obvious that I was going to go more into ideas about embodied memory, even intergenerational trauma, and somatics. So this became part of my art as well. And um, I don't want to talk any further right now about myself because a lot of pieces will come as well as sharing my story in the content of the webinar today. But maybe if you just type quickly a word to say what you're feeling right now. I'm very yeah, my work is about embodiment, so I'm very um, I kind of work with the people in the room. So I think what I say will adapt as well to the energies that I sense. And obviously, you know, right now I'm talking to my computer and my camera. That's why I'm asking you to do that, uh, to feel something from your side. So if you don't mind typing just a word saying what you're feeling right now, or anything that just came to your mind while I was just introducing myself. I'll start by writing. There are a lot of people still joining. Um, yeah, I don't know if everybody can read the chat. Mona says, today I feel a struggle. Healing is hard and I'm doubting I can do it. Erica's saying open, also a bit calmer. And Dania is curious. That's great. I think, thank you for sharing. Feeling a bit tense, Sabrina. Yeah. Why don't we start from here by, if you can find your feet, if you want to stand up, you can stand up. Mariam, you're not alone in this, no. And yes, healing is hard. Healing is a choice. Do we do the hard thing, or do we take it easy and keep our traumas inside us? So that's what it's supposed to be. But healing is for the brave. Let's just say that. And we're all brave to be here, I think. And we're brave to just be mamas, I think. It's anyway, let's not go there now. Let's find our feet, or if you're sitting, find your sit bones under you and plant your feet on the floor, hip width apart, even if you're sitting. You can close your eyes, or if you don't feel like closing your eyes, you can just try to focus your gaze in your third eye, as if you're looking on your forehead between your eyes. And just scan your body without adjusting anything. Just sense what your breath is doing. Maybe be just curious for a second, like, why did my hands want to be on my legs this way today, or by my side this way today? Maybe you're feeling a shoulder a little higher than another one, or um, you're not feeling your back at all, maybe. And how about your feet? How are they contacting the ground? And when we listen to, maybe very important to observe if our breath is going up to our lungs, or if it's going down to our lower abs, or if it's in the center. And we're observing if there's any tension in our solar plexus, or the point between our ribs at the very top of our stomach, so right under our breasts. Maybe tension higher than this or lower than this. And if you feel that your breath is steady, consistent, I invite you to do this scanning after I say each word. So I'm going to say a word, and then you're going to scan and try to sense the first place in your body that this word awakened or connected to, either sending you a signal of tension or release. So I'm going to say change. Change. Where do you feel it in your body? And you're going to notice that and just acknowledge it. Okay, that's where it changed. What changed? What part of my body changed, awakened? Where change might want to dialogue with me? Acknowledge that and release it. By releasing, we mean let's not necessarily thinking about the word anymore and going back to what's going on. How was my butt feeling, my glutes? How was my psoas, the groin? And then gonna say another word, space. Where's space landing for you? Just acknowledge it. And let it go. 2 more words. Try to observe if you're putting any tension in your shoulder or neck. They don't need to be on board. It's a safe space here. I believe your body might tell you otherwise, but you can tell it. It's a safe space here. No need to tense. And the word compassion. Where does compassion stay in your body? Or move in your body? And maybe self-compassion. Is that any different? So feel it, acknowledge it, and let go. And finally, anger. Do you feel that in a place? Does a sensation come with it? Is it pleasant or unpleasant? And just acknowledge, not judging or anything. Just acknowledge and let it go. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. You can give yourself a little hug here, maybe just squeeze a little bit. And take your eyes around the room, just see where you are, maybe spot 1 or 2 objects to orient yourself. I am here in my body in this space. So what I did is called somatic, what I guided you through is called somatic word association. It's a little exercise, body scanning basically, but it also helps see you learn patterns in your body, and orienting to where we are is also exercise to reorient if we're feeling either confusion or anxiety, to anchor ourselves to something tangible. If you have any quick things you want to put in the chat, please feel free to do that. And I'm going to start. So the mothering artist, I guess all of you are creative in a way or another, and you are also mothering or maybe contemplating becoming mothers. I remember so why mothering first, not mother? Mothering for me it's very important for me to make the distinction because of how we say our brains are programmed to box us, like, now I'm a mother, I'm an artist, I'm this, I'm that. And for me, mothering is actually a journey, and it has nothing to do with just the fact that you have a kid. It's an internal journey that can be somehow applied or used as a metaphor for a lot of things. You might mother yourself. A man can be in a mothering state. It's it has nothing to do, I think, with a role that society has assigned to us, or we have assigned to ourselves, because when we think of roles, a definition of roles is ever evolving, and it's up to us to claim a role or not claim it. I prefer to say that I am mothering, and it inspires me, and at the same time, it releases some of my judgment or or preconceived notions and expectations. When I was pregnant, I was about to deliver, and I was working with my doula, and she taught me about the labyrinth. I believe it's from indigenous knowledge here, and they say that when you get pregnant, you enter a labyrinth. And she asked me, when do you think you actually leave the labyrinth? And I thought, I don't know, when you deliver, when the baby's 1 or something. And she said, well, actually, people leave it when the kid is 2, and that's when most people start considering having a second child. And I thought, uh, at the time, obviously couldn't project till my baby was going to be 2. But I think now today I feel I've started leaving the labyrinth. When my daughter actually started uh, became 3.5, 4, that's when I actually started feeling that I'm exiting the labyrinth. And that had to do with the amount of support I had that could delay your process of there's no other way I would want to necessarily express this idea of labyrinth, because it just feels like you're going in a maze and you're getting out of it. Maybe the closest thing to it is like it's the mythical idea of a death and a rebirth. Um, I don't know if you know the symbol of the triple goddess from paganism. I will try to share my screen and I'll show you what it looks like. So you can see here. This is the symbol of the triple goddess. It's pagan spiritual. So it's the waning moon, full moon, and waxing moon. And I would not necessarily get fixated on the all the symbolism of the original idea, but I want to use it here in this context to talk about what to relate it to this idea of mother versus mothering. So in that in the original story or symbolism, it's the virgin, and then the mother, and then the crone. And the virgin is the symbol for they're the stages in a woman's life. So the virgin is the symbol for inception, expansion, new beginnings, birth, youth, enthusiasm, and that's the waxing moon. And then the mother is the ripeness, the fertility, the sexuality, stability, power, life, and that's the full moon. And then the crone is more the wisdom, the death, the repose, and that's the waning moon. And I think, and I've read that the mother symbol or goddess in this triple goddess can be seen to symbolize not just birth and nurturing, but also uh, not raising kids only, but starting a career or a business, or for creative works, or going on your spiritual path. That is to say that it's not necessarily uh, mothering is not necessarily only about that connection with a baby or with a child. And also to say that the interpretation of the symbol has or probably can be seen in a more evolved way, where it's not like I go from virgin to mother to crone, I become wise in the end, and then I die. It's not necessarily that. I think a mother can have the virgin and the crone in her say, um, in her aspects or constitution, or so our sides or aspects that are, I imagine this one body, and then the facets are all these three. And just like, your Ayurvedic profile, we're a little bit kapha, a little bit vata, a little bit your doshas, you're a little bit air, a little bit water, a little bit earth. You're a little bit of these three as well at the same time. And I think the challenge here is that society does not necessarily see or make us helps us internalize that the youth and the virgin idea, not necessarily sexually virgin, but this birthing idea or expansion or enchantment is not in the mother symbol too. But and they see us going from point A to point B to point C, which is very tunnel visioned in my opinion. And so that is just to kind of frame my understanding of this journey. And sorry, lost my notes. And how I like to think about mothering. A lot of times it means to reclaim our uh, virgin self, and that is just a symbol. And it's a cyclical journey. So we don't go and never come back. It's like uh, a certain part of the journey needs a certain part of certain support. So when our kids are toddlers or infants, we're going to need a kind of support. And then when they're older, we're going to need a different kind of support. And with our emotions, we're going to go also into these cyclical journeys. And there are so many things that are impact this. There are other paths that are going along the way of your mothering journey, and then they're going to play together. And that's what going to make us understand who we are all the time, with all these different factors coming into play. So for me, this container, this class, and the mastermind is going to follow is to answer the question, how can the mothering journey be this mirror image of us mothering our own psyches, our own artist selves? And how can we learn from mothering a little human being things that we can apply to feel like we're mothering ourselves? Because everything that the child needs, we need. They need food, we need food. They need regulation, they need affection, we need affection. And especially at a younger age, when they're babies, it's literally whatever they need, we need. And how can this idea, this relationship between mothering somebody else and mothering ourselves, how can they coexist? How can motherhood be this journey where it's like a container and we are in it in harmony? We're one person in our art and in our parenting, one person in harmony with themselves. And it becomes part of the same journey. This is the aim of going through the things that I'm going to talk about, and they're going to be more developed in the future. So today is like an overview of all these ideas, but each of them really needs its own attention and development, because it's a work of, I would say, a year or two at least. It's our internal work. So the I lost my track. Sorry, I need to check my notes. Okay. So this idea of death and rebirth, um, when we have our children, we feel like it's like a descent in mythological sense. It's a death. It's a loss. Uh, a big change and transformation, and when this happens we might talk about it in terms of death or loss. It's, for me, it was a Pandora's box. Anybody else felt like it's a Pandora's box, like in terms of what comes to the surface emotionally? And maybe you could just say yes or no. um, yeah, it's what happened to me is that every time my daughter would go into a certain stage, she would mirror to me the emotions that I had at her own when I was her age. Although I have no memories, I really have almost zero memories from my childhood up to maybe first memories like when I was 8. But she was mirroring to me the emotions of my childhood, not the experiences themselves. So, for example, she was 1, I think. I had tremendous love, and it hit me that this is not familiar to me in any way. I did not get that. Where is that coming from? And I did think, like, you can't give it to her if you didn't get some of it. But I honestly don't feel um, the feeling that I have received it. It's not in my body. So I was almost looking for it. And something else, I had a lot of mother guilt. And also I had this confronting realization that my guilt is coming from almost compensating for uh, my mom's neglect or abandonment. So instead of me just feeling proud that I'm able to give her what my mother did not give to me, I was feeling guilty for what my mom didn't give to me. So I was in constant, like, it's like a double bind, and I couldn't understand what it was, and I couldn't really stop feeling it. It was just like I'm correcting the mistakes of other people in this, in my relating to her. So that was the first couple or 3 years were very confronting. It's just I had a lot of memories about where I could have been nurtured differently or what I maybe needed and lacked. And this association with how I received, how I was nurtured, was at the origin of my perfectionism, and has to do with self-sabotage as an artist, and confidence or feeling like an imposter at a later age. So I mean, in your career. So I think you add to that also that the society has made you internalize what a mother is or is not. So for example, mother is gentle, caring, nurturing, protective. Well, guess what? Mother is also angry, frustrated, powerful, creative, efficient. So I hadn't internalized that. Had anyone, maybe anybody else, internalized that? Like when you, for example, got pregnant, you maybe visualize like, oh, it's going to be this peaceful journey, me and my baby, and we're going to be protected, and the world is going to be so, our world is going to be this peaceful thing. But we did not internalize that, yeah, I'm going to be this raw primal person who's going to feel like she's, for example, I felt like for the first time I have the power to kill someone. If someone touches my daughter, I can kill them. And I had never had this in me. So Had I internalized it before? Of course not. If anything, I internalized that I'm going to be the most peaceful person on earth. So, so these two things together um, make us. I would say they create a disconnect inside us, a disconnect between the actual emotions that we're feeling and what we're doing. Um, gonna pause for a sec to catch my breath and my thoughts here. Maybe you can catch your body, see what it's doing, hearing everything. So we do the work, right? We go through these things. We internalize that we're going to be a hero mother. We're going to be able to do everything. We're not going to need help. We're going to manage, and it's all going to come naturally and easily. It's this idealistic thing like, oh, you're going to have a child, you know? In my culture, they say the fortune comes with a child. Like, you don't even have to worry about practical financial stuff. Um, but like, has anyone told you as well that you need to learn how to ask for help? That's very important. Um, I haven't heard that at all. I mean, that's asking for help is a whole chapter on its own. So we face our fears. Yeah, right. Um, we face our fears. We do the work. We face our demons. We ask ourselves in the mirror, like, why do I care so much? Why am I scared of being judged? What will happen if I leave my baby for an hour to just rest with I don't know whom? You know, what if, like, when I had Gia, I think I hid Gia, but I mean, like, I hid the fact that I had a child for maybe 2 years or 3 years. I would never share any picture with her. There is something of shame that I can now easily say. It's feeling of shame because I was a working mother, successful working mother, and then I obviously work has its own demands, especially in the art world. You think that all the openings and the exhibition openings and the talks and all the events are in the evening, and everyone will say have a glass of wine, and you're pregnant or you just had a child, you're sleep deprived anyway, it's their bedtime, it's their shower time, so you're gonna miss on all of that, and you feel a little bit like a failure there. Like you're less cool, you're less wanted, you're just like a mom. You just, it's you're doing a new job now. And it might not be true. You might have the most supportive work environment or gallerist or curator, whatever. But it's really about what we internalize, because what comes to the surface, what we act upon, is not really what's happening today, but it's what we have internalized and what we've been conditioned to believe in our bodies, not just in our thoughts. Even when we're conscious, at least we can do stuff about it, but a lot of it comes unconsciously. um, so let's say you get back some of that confidence and you're back on your feet and you're starting to feel inspiration seeping back into your life, but then you're you hit a wall. And what is that? Is that, oh, I don't have enough resources. You might not have the resources to resume, and you need help. And that's the second layer of the work, is to build your support system and to create the resources when they lack, and to find the community when it lacks. For me, I did a very stupid thing. I just surrounded myself with artists, and no one around me had kids. And I was in denial that I was the mother now, and everything had to be the same, you know? So eventually I had no one to leave my daughter with because all these artists were also very busy and going to their parties. I did not have warmth in my life where I could just be a mom and just lie down and not talk about anything intellectual or artistic and just play, but with other people, not just me with her in the house or me doing my career related stuff. So there was no in between where it's just a simple, going to the park with another family. And I just started very recently creating this community. So there's the arts community and there's the uh, family community. And ideally, there are some artists around you, maybe who have kids as well. That will just make things much easier. So this is like a little bit of detail here, like detailed tips, but this is part of um, what I think we need to become aware of and what we can discuss more later in the mastermind about specifically how to create our communities and on how to align ourselves with the right communities or how to be resourceful. Um, some of us are just simply not resourceful by nature, not so resourceful. Some of us are, but I don't believe anymore that we can actually succeed in this balancing game without wearing our resourceful hat. And even for us, if it means like if our idea um, is that art needs to be chaotic and impulsive and intuitive, it's true to a certain extent. It will not just be living in that binary way will not serve us on the long run. It will just frustrate or deplete us. So and for some of us, it might just mean that, okay, the art has to wait till the kids turn 5, because I can't imagine leaving my kids with anybody for 2 hours. And that's totally okay, right? It's also about knowing where we are at and what we need and how much we can demand of ourselves and build our support system accordingly. Because what if I'm just simply drained? What if I'm sleep deprived? What if I'm not there yet? So I am more confident and I might be more ready. I miss creating, but I'm just still physically really drained. And I don't have the strength to get up on my feet and put my life together and become resourceful and creative and strategic. So yeah, obviously we won't have the energy to plan and strategize, and that's fine, but we could do small things to increase our capacity, our mental and emotional capacity. And this is by learning about our body. And the more we learn about our body, we actually help ourselves in our career. Um, a little parenthesis here. How is everyone feeling so far? Can I get any thumbs up or words? Are you all good? Cool. So when we, before having kids, for those of you who lived with a partner, you were co-regulating. When you were feeling down, what they say, how they said it, just them listening, their eye contact, their body, their touch would calm you down. And when they were not feeling okay, the same, your presence would help them. And then you have kids and you start co-regulating with your child. Um, and this happens, you could say you self-regulate to regulate the child, but at the same time, their presence gives you a lot. Like those moments of bonding, they give you a lot. So you're also co-regulating with the child, and the child learns to self-regulate from being born till the age of 5. They do most of that work. And some of us find ourselves, unfortunately, having to regulate our partners and co-regulate with our kids, but also we feel that the regulating with our partners is not coming so easily anymore for many reasons. But we might feel then that we're doing a lot of effort to regulate our kid and to regulate with our partner, but who's regulating us? And we usually self-regulate when we have time. We might exercise, we'll go for a walk, we might just rest, listen to music. But when those things are not available, it becomes really like very precarious, I would say. Um, so when we learn more and more about the body, our bodies, and we spend time with our bodies, we reestablish this minimum threshold of regulating ourselves, and we expand our capacity, we expand our energy, and we expand our um, what's the word, endurance, I would say. So that's like the most generic formula explaining the nervous system in 2 minutes. But that's just the part of, the people call it self-care. I don't think it's self-care. I don't think, because people are get so hung up on the idea of self-care that you almost have to schedule it, and it becomes this other burden, like, oh, I haven't done self-care this week, or I need to do this or that, like I haven't done enough exercise. It becomes this burden, and it becomes this other chore. And I don't think looking at being with our body this way is helpful, because it might just reinforce, if we are perfectionists, it might reinforce our perfectionism. It might, if we feel guilty, if we self-sabotage, it's going to reinforce those ideas. But it's about learning how, in any moment, to check in with the body, and then to kind of do little, very little tricks to bring back a sense of, we call it like window of capacity. So a sense of safety, you can also call it that. And you can think about it as the opposite of being triggered, the opposite of being stressed. So we learn those things to um, yeah, to kind of almost reset at any point without having to plan self-care. It's things that we do to reset, and to see very clearly and in the moment where our thresholds are being flooded. So we then are clearer on our boundaries, how much, what my capacity is, and then it becomes available to us to set those boundaries more easily and identify our needs more easily. Um, so this is like the basic stage. And I think what's very fruitful in this realm is that not only our sense of well-being and the triggers release, or stress is more regulated, actually we start feeling that our um, the pleasure is more available to us, feeling pleasure, even our sexuality, we feel again some sexual energy coming on board. And sexuality and creativity and pleasure are all related. So so this is the for me, the basic place where we can start demanding of ourselves to be productive. Before we start reaching the stage, I think we're really just draining ourselves even more if we demand from ourselves to be productive. So I'm going to pause here and we're going to do a little writing exercise. And it can be mental if you don't have any paper or a phone to write on near you. So I'm just going to ask you 3 questions and you answer them with yourself. You can even answer them in the chat if you want. Let me share my screen again. I think I put them in the presentation. Let me see. But the first question is, yeah. I'm in a phase in my art career where I need more or less. And you just continue. And the second question is having or being ... is not helping me get there. And the last one is I can use more support with ... to get there. Okay. Now let's talk about art. Um, Maybe I encourage you to, if you feel you wanted to write more, I encourage you to come back to the exercise and think about it again later, and every few months even. Um, yeah, so now we talk about art, and I'll share with you a little bit about my experience. So before becoming a mother, I was very clear about my drive, what motivated my art and my self expression. It was a very strong feminist point of view. I really wanted to talk about, or even talk to, or help girls, particularly from my culture, who were raised or who were challenged by conservative societies or communities they were part of, who were silenced or oppressed. And I was very clear and very also uh, in my in my voice, very determined and angry. And I remember my ex used to tell me, like, why are you still talking to me as if I'm one of those men? Like, I'm not your dad, or I'm not a patriarchal person. And I said, as long as there's one woman, I mean, not talk to him only, because talk in general about the subject. I guess he felt like threatened, or that I was addressing him, but just that this passion that I had about it. Um, I said, if even there's one single girl somewhere in, I don't know, Yemen or Afghanistan, who has to silence herself or wear the veil against her own will, or struggle not be able to fulfill her dreams because of the conservative or extreme society she's from, I'm going to keep talking. This is what I feel like. It's not just for me. And it was so clear. um, and it drove me. I had Gia, and this conviction with which I was speaking left me. This conviction, I did not have conviction anymore. I did not have clarity. I felt like there was a disconnect between this new thing I'm doing and what it brought to me subconsciously, and the my art. There was a disparity, and it was not the same voice, and it's because of those things that I talked about, which have to do with internalizing. um, my brain did not internalize that you can be feminist and mother at the same time. So I became this patriarchal person in my mind, because I was judging, but all of that was happening under the surface. I was judging myself now, as if, um, yeah, you can't speak those words while you're in that role, as if there was this um, contradiction. And I think, yeah, I internalized the stereotypes. They were clashing with my beliefs. And it took me a while to reset. I slowly started, um, I guess eventually I saw that these two things actually completely complement each other. But it took a while. But then I slowly started, for example, writing poems. For a while I could not create anything, and then those poems started coming. Before I could make films or performances, or draw. I was writing those very dark love stories with nursery rhymes mixed together, and I was just witnessing what was coming out, because it was both scary and and very unfamiliar. And I think unfamiliar is the scary part. Like, yeah, just to think of me in my 20s writing something with nursery rhymes would be so unimaginable. And yeah, definitely something I would have judged or felt very this repulsion against, maybe even. So my artistic drive was definitely shattered and challenged, and I was questioning, like, what do I talk about now? My work was autobiographical for the most part until then, and then I was out of material for my art because I was not comfortable talking about what was going on in my life, and about motherhood. And gradually, yeah, those writings came, and other stories. I think I was processing this idea of death of my old artist self. And I think I was also processing my volatile marriage, hence the weird love stories that were coming out. And slowly, I could not see the threads then of what I was creating. I was definitely not thinking in terms of a coherent body of work. Um, but now I can see the link. And I think it's very important because this is um, almost like re rewriting your artist statement. This is what happens. You creating or reestablishing the values for you as an artist, and they will help you to have a vision for your artistic career. And they will guide you towards your arts community, those people who have those shared values. So the values will change, and I think that's what uh, the big part of accepting the change is to accept that our values as human beings also change, and with the different experiences that we go through in life. So even if whatever you produced, if you were able to be a little bit creative in the first few years of having a child, even if what you produced was disjointed all over the place, that's totally legit. I think just being happy to have produced anything, that's like already a great feat, and being patient that we're maturing into the mothering phase. We don't go in there and are just landing there and then everything is going to, like, a new chapter starts. No, we're actually gradually maturing into it. We're understanding more and more why we're creating what we're creating. We're understanding what we want to create. We might start creating something totally different because we're in a small house and then not in a big studio. We might change our format. There will be a lot of things that um, might change just because we want to still create and we're trying to be practical. And I think this is also very important, to be forgiving when this happens. And we will not find out overnight what's going to be the new scenario. So after some time, you'll look back and you'll see, like, the thread of your creation. It will fit again in the bigger scheme of your art career. For now, it might be this weird thing that I'm working on. I don't know why I'm doing. And then eventually, everything is going to fit. And it's like in the moment just to let go, just allow failure, allow feeling just proud to giving ourselves the chance to be creative in the first place, to give ourselves this half an hour or hour to create something, or to sit and incubate, to even sit and just think of ideas and incubate, and then being happy that we're giving ourselves this pleasure. I do think that mothering in the first few years are a very big incubation period, and what might come after actually might be very strong, or very evolved from where we were at, even when we're not creating. I think the evolution happens because I think, in terms of the internal side, the themes might become more strong, and the voice might become more strong if we actually get to this place where we find our power again. And the technique might suffer, might not suffer, it doesn't matter. These days, I really think technique is overrated anyway, but let's not talk about that. Let's not go into this controversy right now. Um, so yeah, failing, I think, is inevitable when you're going through a transformation. The only way to transform is to shed, it's to peel, to try and throw. So it's part of it. I think I almost feel this admiration for the word failure today in a way that I haven't before, that because I would never allow myself to fail before. So finally, I want to talk about the practical stuff like time management, being efficient, setting goals. So kids start going to school, you have more time for yourself, and then it's about really being practical here. I will read two quotes that I um, enjoyed reading, want to share them with you. This is an artist called Lara Khaldi. I've suddenly become so much more efficient knowing how little time I have for work now. I not only appreciate it more, but I've become more daring, especially with writing. I used to procrastinate when writing texts and papers, spending more time researching, reading, thinking, and planning, and then would just write on the deadline. Now I just plan to write ahead. Neil has given me courage. Perhaps work becomes something more practical. I've become less sensitive and more forgiving, even if I'm cranky a lot of time because of sleep deprivation. And this is another one, the writer, in an article by Hadley Freeman. A writer friend once told me that she loses 2 books with each child she has, but then you come back motivated and write differently than you would have before. Who can define what is actually lost? Yeah, I totally agree with both these, and I relate to them. Um, I do have a lot of tips for time management and efficiency. I can't give them all today, and but I think the major one is to accept the idea that we do need to become more or less organized, that we need to put our strategic hat on and have some days for more impulsive, intuitive work and other days for more planning, organizational work. And maybe we need to learn new skills. There are a lot of software that can help us, obviously, and strategies like even optimizing our moon cycle. For me, this is a efficiency strategy. Like I work with my moon cycle. Today, I plan the webinar while looking at my moon calendar. I want to be in like mid cycle so I can be open enough and sociable enough and extroverted. And yeah, if I was having if I was bleeding now, I would just want to be alone, basically. So that and how much energy you'll have throughout your cycle. So that's an idea. There's so much room for improvement, even for the most organized of us. And I think I'm a high achiever. I'm learning to give myself a break sometimes and not be this high achiever. But with efficiency, you won't feel like you're always like wanting to, I want to do so much. It's more like I want to take these things off my list today, but then you have to have a list, obviously. So um for me, if we want to um think of it in a general concept, it's like there are days where you want to completely empty your calendar and have uninterrupted creative time. And then you will feel very productive then because you've focused a few hours for art making. But then there might be days where you send a gallery submission and then do the laundry. Like you won't be able to do the laundry and then go rehearse in a studio for movement. For me, it doesn't work because it's like almost when I recruit my right brain or my left brain in the morning, when I read my email and start writing stuff in the morning, preparing a lecture or something, then my intuitive side is already like a bit suppressed. So working on art first thing in the morning versus in the afternoon. I think also observing what works for you, because what works for me might not necessarily be what works for you. So yeah, it might be trickier to have parent teacher meeting and then um, go paint or something. But that's what that's what we can have space to create a structure and I think be more goal oriented. So in a nutshell, I went over a little bit the mother guilt, perfectionism, and imposter syndrome, and then support system, resourcefulness, community, and then our nervous system, self-regulation, co-regulation, and boundaries. A little bit about our values, our artist statement, art community, and time management, efficiency, and goal setting. And these are the chapters, the monthly meetings for this mastermind that I want to start next week to go actually over 2 to 2.5 hours into each of them and allocate this time to get deeper into each of them. And basically, it will be a little bit similar to today, but mostly we're going to start with movement, exercise, and then a talk like today, but shorter with more practical tips and ideas about rituals on how to navigate those challenges, and then writing exercise longer than the one we had today, and then Q&A with a lot of time for open discussion. And we set an intention for the following month uh, for reflection, homework. Not necessarily you have to submit any homework, but ideas if you want. And I think it could even be this accountability group, because we could have time based on the needs and wants of everyone to maybe share art and then give feedback to each other. But this could be also like Facebook group, but I'm not very good with Facebook groups. But if there's this, people feel like, yeah, it would be lovely to have this accountability part where we can have long discussion and all give feedback to each other, then I will definitely be open to starting a Facebook group, a private group, obviously. But I think it's like my vision is this container, this support group, at the same time creative container um, for balancing what I mentioned earlier, feeling this harmony, balancing our art and our parenting, and it's from the internal emotional things to the very practical things. I think art and creativity are always at the center, because this is what we all want to be and want to really create and make art. um, and the last thing I want to say is that there's early bird pricing till the 28th, so 3 days from now. And you can email me if you want accommodations, if you have low income or whatever. It's 5 days, so it's the first Thursday of April, May, June, July, August, same time as today. What else? I think that's it. This is a quote that I also like, that I want to finish with before we move to our conversation. It's by Carl Jung. The greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of its parents. This speaks to me a lot. Did anyone know this quote? You can unmute yourselves if you want now. I want to open it up to any questions, any reflections, anything that came to you while I was talking, or maybe even if you want to share what you do. And even if you're not thinking of taking the mastermind, I still think that I'd love to get to know you all more, and just enrich this conversation, because it's what I learn as well through other people's experiences that drives me more and gives me the same courage to continue. And so does anyone want to say anything or type anything or have any question? Hi. Thank you so much for sharing this. When you were talking, a few things came to my mind. Well, one of them is about youth. I know, like, when I go to certain galleries and you can see that it's this really young, hip culture, very much younger, maybe very much more experimental, radical, whatever. The first thing that comes to my mind is comparing. And then I think there's two ways of looking at this. One way for me was to almost pretend sometimes to be something I am not, to fit, and or to actually insist on what I am, no matter which circle I'm in, to insist on not bringing with me this disconnect. No, to come fully, like this, my whole self. And one thing might be to just look for whatever feels more representative of us, right? And to not force ourselves into those situations where that are going to awaken our sense of not belonging, or feeling, or not fitting, sometimes we put ourselves in those situations because we want to remind ourselves that we're not fitting or not belonging, or we subconsciously bring past rejection stories into what we do. And but I also read something, thank you, Mona, or heard it in an interview, which has to do with, we need to make children and pregnancy more visible because they're not visible enough. And I think when we make them more visible in the arts world, this is when we don't feel like imposters anymore. We feel like, oh, there's a place for us. But I think it's great times we live in today, because we're creating these spaces right now with this conversation, for example. We're with other people doing the same work or different work, similar vein. We're creating those opportunities for us right now. We don't have to make ourselves less visible. With dance, for example, I went to a show in Vancouver where the dancer breastfed in the middle of the show and then came back. It was in a gallery, and then she was dancing. It was part of a performance with an artwork. And then they left, and the baby came in the middle of the performance, and then they took them, and then they breastfed, and then came back. And I was like in awe, because I was thinking this is a lot of courage and it requires a lot of courage, but honestly, it just requires this thinking of why not? I can do that. Or I was taking a clowning class and we had an artist come as a guest artist to give us a talk, and she brought her two kids to the class, and they were, I mean, clowning class is probably more forgiving, but they were like, oh my gosh, they ended up hitting us with their toys, and so they were loud. So we're trying to focus on her lecture. We're trying to not get distracted by her kids at the same time. But for me, it was like, this is real life, you know? I think we just need courage to claim those things again. Anybody has any comment to Chevon or their own question? I really feel that we're actually in the time we're transforming this. I almost feel the responsibility here that, okay, it's, I either do this and the future will change, or I don't do anything and I'll just lose a chance there. But I think, yeah, the chunks of time is, for me, it's the same. It's pretty challenging, but the tricky part is if you also need to provide financially, then you have no choice but to have more time to work. If there's a support, then actually I would lean into the support and be very realistic. So for me, for example, my daughter goes to her father's on Sundays and Wednesdays, and that's where I do most of my work, but I will have prepared a list and then I will try to tick everything off of that list. But today I couldn't tick everything off, yesterday, and I had to forgive myself and I had to find a place for it in the coming week or two. So I also, she goes to daycare, soon to school. So I will try to do everything in that during that time, and I will have things written down for every day, and I'll write them 2 weeks in advance or a week in advance. I learned that gradually. It doesn't come very easily. If the child is too young, you can't really probably become so organized. But then if your child is very young now, then I know I would just say, after now the babysitting, maybe they will go to preschool or something. We have to accept that we'll have more time as they grow up. Maybe somebody else has a different point of view they can share. I'd love to hear it. But for me, it was to accept that maybe next year I'll have 2 hours. Yeah, the first year or two, I had 1 hour chunks of time. And now I have 4, 5 hour chunks of time. I used to work for 11 hours a day when I was a designer. And I don't think I was more productive, to be honest. I think the way I work now and what I do feels, I feel there's much more value and there's much more done because, yeah, because I'm more efficient too. So again, like optimizing our body and our time. Anyone else wants to contribute? We have a couple minutes left.
Hi.
Hi, Sabrina.
How are you?
Good.
Good. So yeah, for me, the experience of when the baby first came, it was a bit frustrating because there was zero.
Thank you so much. Totally. I love this idea of seasons. And for me, thinking ahead was very scary before. and the idea of long-term planning, I had a very, avoidant personality, and I had to do some work, to somatic work actually, to sit with the long term. And I had an intention for like the kind of a New Year's intention. So for the year, I do those on my birthday to accept this idea of long term planning. So I had to transform, also rewire my brain to not feel so scared of thinking long term. So for some of us it comes more easily, but it definitely helped me too. Yeah, for sure. I think I can learn from all of you as much as I can give to you. Thank you so much for being present today. I hope you enjoyed this class, and feel free to email me if you have any feedback. I love hearing your feedback, or if you have any questions. I hope to see you in my mastermind if you think this kind of conversation is something that you would want to have once a month. And check artsembodiment.com/mama for the mastermind. I will send a recording of this to all of you, and remind you of the mastermind early bird deadline. Thank you again. I really hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.